Retirement accounts are considered a marital asset in a divorce, and the general way they're treated is that whatever accrued during the marital coverture period is divided. What marital coverture means is how long the parties have been married. So what would be divided is what accrued from the date of the marriage to the date of divorce. So the issue with retirement plans is that in pensions, sometimes people just divide the payment itself that they're ultimately going to receive. So for instance, if you're going to receive a payment of $3,000 a month when you retire, and that's 15 years from now, that $3,000 a month isn't divided 50-50. If that's, let's use the example that the parties are married 20 years and then the pension is payable, the party continues working, say, for 10 more years beyond the divorce date. So that one spouse would get 2/3 of 1/2 is how it would work in terms of the payment. So in that case, it would be, if the payment were $3,000, one spouse would get half of $2,000 is how it would get divided. And the way pensions are divided is by means of a qualified domestic relations order. That is an order that is drafted and given to the court, and the court approves it, and then it's given back to your plan administrator for the pension, so that the plan administrator then has the authority to divide the check between the parties. And that's also true if it's a non-pension payment, like an IRA account, a 401k account. Those are what you see as what you get accounts. Whatever your balance is, it is. And in that instance, if there was an amount that was clearly something that could be carved out as being prior to the marriage, we also make that argument that it was prior to the marriage. And that's how generally it would get divided, although the court doesn't always carve out premarital IRA or 401k money, although that's generally what they do. So, but the other problem with dividing pension and retirement accounts, and this is a fairly common issue, is someone might have worked for an employer for a long time, and they want to keep their pension and they want to keep it at all cost. Or, for instance, they want their spouse to have the house and they want to keep their pension. That's sometimes common. So what we do in that case is we get the pension valued. And I'll give you a really simplified idea of what that means. The evaluations are done by a specialist, an actuary, and essentially what they do is they take the pension and they want to determine what the present value of that pension is. So they take the number of payments that it's expected to be made in the pension from the date the person starts collecting the pension to the anticipated date of death. And they assign the anticipated date of death by means of actuarial tables. And so if it appears, for instance, given that person's age at the time of divorce and given their life expectancy, that they are going to, in 10 years, collect a pension for 20 years, what they do is they take the 20 years of payments, say it's, again, I'll use the $3,000 example, 20 years times $3,000 a month, and they reduce that to a present value. So it might be 2/3 of the actual amount received, because they now have to backdate it for the current, for the fact that you've only been, that you're looking at assigning a value to that pension now and trading that against another asset. So say you get a pension valuation and it says that the pension is worth $250,000, and say the house is worth, the equity in the house is worth $250,000. Sometimes what people will say is you keep your pension and you keep your house. Now, another argument that's made with that is that it's pension money versus a house, and maybe there should be a slight discount for the fact that it's pension money, but that's taken into account with the calculation of the present value. But that same argument is also made with regard to IRAs and 401ks, because clearly if you withdraw from an IRA or 401k, that's a taxable event. So sometimes the argument's made that the 401k and IRA should not be treated the same as the equity in the house. But then the flip side of that argument is that money in a house isn't always cash either, although you can get an equity line of credit typically. But cash in a house is also subject to cost when it's distributed, such as broker's fees and other normal customary selling costs, tax stamps, and so forth.